Welcome, everybody, to Three Side Sports Talk. Todd Kleinheinz alongside Jerry Sue, Jeff Krupinski. First episode of the new year. Happy to have you along with us, and we're going to dive right into what ended up being a packed rundown for being the offseason already for the Niners. So before we get to the Niners specifically, the NFL in general had their Black Monday, a few firings. We talked about things at the end of the last podcast, and let's start with, those things we talked about last time. Who was right? Who was wrong? Jerry, 100% right when he called Anthony Lynn out the door. I gave him, I was buying into the Chargers really like him and they won, 7 games kind of thing. But he was dismissed rather quickly. Jerry also said Fangio 100% out the door. Well, Fangio didn't get out the door. There was, some Bronco shakeup. So, which in a way will tie to the Niners, which we can get to later on. But I would say there were no shocking dismissals in terms of coaches being fired. We kind of called, or at least saw most of them coming. I think the only surprise was the fact that guys like Fangio are keeping their job. Doug Peterson keeping his job, although I guess everyone kind of figured that out midway through that Sunday night game when he decided he didn't have to win, so that was fine. And Zach Taylor, with the Bengals, keeping his job. I think we discussed that he might be a candidate out the door. So for me, it wasn't so much those surprise firing as a few guys hung on to their jobs, which I think just makes their seat even hotter going into the next season. But any thoughts on Black Monday in the NFL?
Well, that's the thing. I don't understand for some of these teams that did keep their coaches, they're entering, they're not exactly entering 2021 as lame ducks given their contract situation, but everybody already knows that they're on the hot seat, like Vic Fangio. I definitely was surprised that he's still in Denver, and I will admit I was wrong that he didn't get fired, but we did see how they frittered away a possible win against the Raiders on Sunday, and that's the kind of stuff that's been happening under Fangio's watch the past 2 seasons. So it'll be interesting to see who Denver gets as their new GM, whether they pick a guy just because he's willing to keep Fangio, or if the new GM has his own head coaching preference and dumps Fangio anyway. As for the Bengals, I guess they just did what they always do, right? Which is base their decision on financial reasons. So they kept Taylor, but look, Taylor's 6-25-1 record in 2 seasons does not inspire any confidence at all. At no point have I or anybody else felt like, yes, they're right on the cusp of turning that corner. And if Joe Brady gets hired by some other organization to be head coach during this cycle, then that's a lost opportunity to reunite Brady with Joe Burrows, because those two clearly had amazing chemistry together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for Fangio, I also think it goes back to what we saw with the Niners a couple years ago when they kept Balky and, hired, any litany of coaches instead of just blowing it all out and starting over. Because the new GM for Denver, you got to think, is going to want his own coach. So it just puts Fangio in a tough situation. And I guess I'm biased because I thought if he got fired, boy, wouldn't he be a nice possibility as defensive coordinator for the Niners. So,
and how many times has that happened where a GM is forced to keep the incumbent, but then ultimately fires the guy the next season anyway? So I don't know. I kind of don't understand the point of that.
Yeah, I would just ask if that's a done deal for sure in Denver. I mean, I haven't really heard, I guess. I mean, I'm assuming it is, but so Elway will move up in some sort of capacity and then hire a new guy, and then that may turn into be a disaster for Fangio or whoever else down the road. I don't know why they didn't just blow that out. I think one guy that Todd mentioned with John Harbaugh with the Ravens, I guess that still could be a surprise. Yeah, they made the playoffs, so like what you were saying before, I think that would be a surprise. But considering they're still in the playoffs, he's not going to get fired, which I doubt he will anyway. And then I guess McCarthy is the other one I was going to mention that we mentioned before. 1 year, I guess you got to give him some more time there. No other surprises. I think the big one maybe was just Fangio. It just seems like he probably should have gone. I would say.
Yeah, And one
I think
thing,
for me too, another surprise are all the names that are in the hiring mix this year, particularly all the college coaches, right? Like Jim Harbaugh, that's typical. You hear his name year in and year out. Urban Meyer, I guess a little bit, you hear his name as well, migraines issues aside, but then you have Pat Fitzgerald out of Northwestern, you have Dan Mullen of Florida, Matt Campbell out of Iowa State, and yet you don't hear names like David Shaw of Stanford or Lincoln Riley of Oklahoma, and we haven't even heard of Josh McDaniels' name. So I find that all to be kind of interesting and peculiar.
Jeff?
Which I thought maybe McDaniels might then surface with Caserio in Houston.
Yeah.
Right, because
But I guess he's also tied to Dable, right? So I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I think just piggybacking on how you started, this, I was going to say that this cycle of fired coaches, unlike in years past where you saw like an Adam Gase get fired from Miami and become head coach of the Jets, I don't think any of these guys who got fired are even going to get interviewed for any of the positions open this year. I mean, I think they're all going to have to go be coordinators or, sit out and collect their paycheck for the year, whatever they might want to do. I guess the only theory I might have as to why you're hearing, Matt Campbell, Fitzgerald, Dan Mullins, those types of guys, is because there seems to be a prevailing theory, and I don't buy into it, that the NFL is starting to look more like the college game with the spread offenses, these mobile quarterbacks. And I just don't buy that because we see Kingsbury down in Arizona trying to implement this system, and it just doesn't work. And whereas guys like you heard David Shaw and Lincoln Riley in years past, and at least Shaw's come out previously and said, he was happy at Stanford. He wants to stay there. He's a Stanford guy. The new names you're hearing, I've never heard them say, "Nah, I'm not really into the NFL." So I think maybe these guys are just, are the owners are seeing these guys take middling programs like Iowa State to a big New Year's Day bowl and go, well, he can lead people, he can run an offense that we want to run, and let's go make an offer. I mean, Urban's kind of your outlier because he is such a big name, but I mean, $12 million a year? You're going to give Urban $12 million a year? I mean, I guess, but I mean, I'm not sold on any of these college guys because I see a better path being the way that McVay became a head coach and Shanahan became a head coach, and that's working in the NFL exclusively. You learn the ropes, you learn the positions, you learn everything, and then if you rise up that high, great.
Yeah, so with so many names and options being floated out there, and like you said, with a lot of teams now gravitating more towards the offensive guys, I don't know if it's a certainty that Saleh gets a head coaching position this offseason. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, I thought so for sure, but yeah, I don't know because listen to Mariucci on NFL Network. He was saying the similar thing as far as the trend being offensive guy, offensive coordinator, offensive mind, and he's there and he's stable. Whereas a defensive coordinator guy comes in and then his offensive coordinator that he hires then ends up getting fired a year later, 2 years later. So there's that stability there. So the trend being, the Shanahans and the McVays. So, I mean, if he's that good of a leader and guys want to play for him, I would think he would have a shot for sure.
I'm not surprised. I wasn't surprised about the Chargers firing Anthony Lynn. I know he's more of an offensive guy, but I mean, they've got a young franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert on his rookie contract, right? They can't waste that. Right. So they got to get it. I'm sure what they're going to do is go after a head coach who can take Herbert to another level so then they can become playoff contenders. And I'm guessing it will be an offensive guy.
Yeah. And the thing about, we were speculating that there could have been upwards of, 7 to 10 openings, and currently, there's 7. So what's going to happen? And I have no research to back this up, but it just seems that teams who have one way of doing things previously, like Matt Patricia was a defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn was a defensive coordinator. Teams tend to go the other direction, just like if you have a really stern Tom Coughlin kind of guy, you go more with a player's coach. If you have too much of a player's coach, you want to get a disciplinarian in there. And so with Atlanta and the Lions both having these, leaders of men on the defensive side and it not working out, do they want to take another shot on Saleh? Now, again, I have no research to say, no, it's going to be opposite, but it's got to be in their thinking that we've gone down this path. Can we switch it up?
I thought the same thing with the Lions specifically regarding Saleh, even though everyone wrote those letters to the owner, I guess, saying we want this guy, but can he be, is he going to be the offensive guy or are we just hiring another Patricia? So.
Well, what's interesting to me as well is in a lot of these situations, they have two openings, right, for head coach and GM, and they're interviewing all these guys concurrently. So it's just weird. Like usually you either have the head coach in place and he will then decide, just kind of like the Niners did with Kyle Shanahan, okay, who would he work best with, or vice versa. You want the general manager hired and then he'll pick who he wants as his head coach. So it's kind of weird how they're going about this all concurrently, which is, again, why it'll be interesting to see what options Saleh has available to him. I know that, I don't know. For me, I think Detroit is still his best shot, being that he's from there. And like you said, the fans are clamoring for him. And I don't think Detroit is really that coveted of a job.
Right.
I would agree. I would say it's not the Chargers with your offense and your rookie quarterback already installed. It's not Jacksonville with the number one pick and plenty of salary cap. So I would say Detroit isn't the most coveted job. Plus, you're going to have, significant questions on what to do with Stafford and how to build that back up. So it's possible Saleh can go that direction. The thing, and I kind of reserved myself to, Saleh will be getting a head coaching job, not just because his name's been in the news, but so many people talk so highly of him, his players, people in the media. I heard Peter King talking about how he's gauged owners, and basically Saleh is just so well respected around the league. I thought, he's going to get this head coaching job, which on the very, very surface is a bummer because, okay, the Niners need a defensive coordinator. But we're forgetting that if he leaves, maybe he does get paired with Adam Peters, who's, in the front office for the Niners as a GM somewhere. Who on the offensive staff is Saleh going to take? Who on the is he going to not raid the Niners coaching staff, but you got to think he's going to pick a few guys to take with him. So the Niners are going to have to backfill some of these positions. So,
yeah, I was just going to mention that. I don't know, admittedly, all the inner workings and what the relationships are either in the building or throughout the league, you never really know. So how close is he to Adam Peters? Because could he then join him in Detroit? Mayhew, maybe not, right? He was there before, I think. So maybe, I don't know. But yeah, could bring him with him, or maybe a better suit for Saleh would be the Chargers and bring down LaFleur with them or something like that. It's just hard to know how close these guys are. I don't really know. That's, I guess, the unknown.
Has Peters been interviewed by anybody else besides Carolina and Denver?
I heard.
I think those are the only two that I've heard, and
the Falcons Falcons requested. I don't know if he's done the interview yet. The Falcons requested him, so.
Gotcha. Because I think I thought I heard part of the reason why Adam Peters came to work for the Niners is because he's from the Bay Area and he wanted to put down some roots and raise his family here. But, money and power often changes things. So I guess we'll see.
Right. Yeah.
So
unknown. Yeah.
It is. And, and it's certainly not our job to come up with plan A, B, and C, but you would think the Niners are, sitting in there going, okay, if this happens, this happens, this happens. So, let's go through that exercise. Should Saleh leave?
Well, let me ask you this. So you said all those things about Saleh, right? Which is all correct about how great of a leader, how great of a coach he is. But right at the end of the day, there's still got to be a fit. So of all the openings that we see thus far, which opening or which team do you think he will land with?
I would say Detroit.
Yeah, I think Detroit's the only one. I really can't see him going anywhere else. playoffs.
I can see him at least. I can see him being a top 2 or 3 consideration for Atlanta. Arthur Blank seems to be one of those upstanding top character type guys in terms of what he wants from his organization. And, Saleh brings that. And, he brings that high energy, high character type of thing. But I just think there's too many little things in Detroit that would seem to lure him that direction.
And I just think that in Atlanta, if you're going to go in that direction, doesn't Raheem Morris fall under the same umbrella? So wouldn't you just keep Raheem Morris if that's the direction that if you want a solid type of guy, don't you already have a solid type of guy there in Raheem Morris?
Yeah, one thing I thought, and I mentioned a little bit ago, was the Chargers. I guess I don't know if that makes any sense. I mean, just basically what Todd was saying earlier about they had an offensive guy, and maybe now they switch and go defense. Because if he's such a good motivator, I think that's something the Chargers players need. They have really good players, and they should probably be in the playoffs. So if he's that good of a motivator and he can bring in an offensive guy to work with Herbert, then maybe that's an easy transition, or he already has a lot of talent there.
I looking at it just as nothing really tying myself to any other place, like just looking at the teams, I would think the Chargers would be the top of everyone's list just because they're so close to already being in the playoffs. And like you said, probably should be in the playoffs had they had a coach who managed the clock and made better decisions, or started Herbert week 1, type of thing. Had those things happen, maybe the Chargers are in the playoffs. So I mean, that seems to be the best already made situation.
That's why I think if they want a guy to take them to that next level, a guy who hasn't had head coaching experience, they're going to get an offensive guy like a Brian Dable, or they're just going to go after a big name.
Yeah,
because they're in the LA market.
Right. Yeah. Well, you would think hopefully Herbert is the face of the franchise and that they don't need the big name. They don't need the John Gruden to come in, because if they bring in somebody who can just get them 2 more wins, they're in the playoffs and doing better things. But back to the Niners, thoughts on who leads the defense? Who's the DC for the Niners should Saleh leave?
Well, selfishly, I hope Raheem Morris doesn't get a head coaching gig, because then he could be our defensive coordinator, and Mike Daniels could remain on our staff, because rumor has it that Morris would take Daniels with him if he did get a head coaching job. But if not Morris, then D'Amico Ryans makes sense to maintain continuity, and the Niners like promoting from within. But if Saleh takes Ryan with him, if Saleh gets a head coaching job, then hopefully Gus Bradley is still available, since Bradley was Saleh's mentor.
Yeah, I think we hear all these rumors and stuff about promoting from within, but I think my opinion on this is just get the best guy, whether that's whoever you said, Morris, or somebody like that. Get the best guy. You don't necessarily have to promote from within, or not just do it just for the sake of doing it. I mean, if we get another guy who's got more experience or who is better, then great. Let's go with him. Maybe obviously either a similar system, not just a totally new system, right? I guess would be ideally for me.
So let me give you just a few of my thoughts, because I tried to take a mini dive into some of these guys, specifically the names that are already out there. So you're talking about Gus Bradley. Shanahan has a relationship, and Bradley runs the same system as Saleh does. So there's continuity there. But Bradley's already also been interviewed by the Raiders. And really until Saleh leaves, you can't hire anybody. So the Raiders could, hire him before he even gets a shot at interviewing with the Niners. The other guy that is, rumored in terms of the connection to Shanahan is Dan Quinn. Now I'll say I'm not a fan of Dan Quinn. He seems to have ridden the coattails of other, he was in Seattle, but that didn't inspire me to think he put together the Legion of Boom when Pete Carroll is there as a defensive guy and John Schneider's there drafting the players. He goes to Atlanta and never had a good defense. As a defensive guy, he just never had anything to do it. In fact, their best year was when Shanahan was there as the offensive coordinator and then went to the Super Bowl. The two other guys, and D'Amico Ryans. I will say, going back to us being ahead of the curve, we talked about how fast Warner looked and how fast Greenlaw was, and Al-Shahir, sorry, and how well those guys looked, right? And then you start going, well, if D'Amico Ryans is kind of the inspiration and the leader and the coach who's gotten those linebackers, especially Fred Warner. I don't think it gets talked enough that Fred Warner did not play middle linebacker in college. He did not call plays. The fact that they got him to an all-pro level so quickly is a testament to Ryan. So, I think that would be a nice promotion. Two dark horses, which I haven't seen really anywhere, but one is Steve Wilkes, former head coach of the Cardinals, who sat out, collected his paycheck, and might be interested in coming back. The other one is a former Niner, former linebacker, current defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich.
Is he in Atlanta? He's the DC in Atlanta?
He's the current defensive coordinator in Atlanta, and we all know that once Dan Quinn was fired and Raheem Morris took over, the team overall improved, including the defense. Like the defense, it was giving up 30, 40 points. It was down to like 24 points. So, again, this is Jerry's pie in the sky, we're trading for Deshaun Watson moment, but here's a former Niner, kind of a beloved Niner during the down days who everyone enjoyed, who's a defensive coordinator. So that's my dark horse.
I don't think Ulbrich would be a pie in the sky. I think you could. I think you can get him unless Raheem Morris takes him.
And I think that's my point. Is I think the Niners are a better destination that they can get someone without having to go so far down their list of, oh man, can't get him. He doesn't want to come here. Then they get him.
These aren't the Jason Tarver days. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. What was that, Jeff?
I said it sounds like all of those guys would be a good option. Sounds like.
I mean,
similar style, right?
Yeah. So, and again, but the Niners got to consider, and apparently, Shanahan has already had the conversations with Saleh of who do you want to take, but you would hope guys like Chris Kasarik stay with the Niners because the defensive line has been, so good. And if he leaves and they promote D'Amico Ryans, then, well, he can't take Ryans and, those type of things. But you're right. Saleh going to become a head coach almost ensures LaFleur will be following with him to be his offensive coordinator. So again, hopefully the Niners can keep McDaniels as their OC. We all know Kyle calls the plays, but he's got to have guys to put the plays in, be a sounding board offensively type of thing.
Right. And supposedly McDaniels has a really strong relationship with Kyle Juszczyk. So this just would be another team that the Niners would have to compete against in re-signing Juszczyk, which is also weird. I don't know if you guys saw or heard, apparently in his sort of outgoing press conference or interview with the media, he didn't sound like a guy who was coming back for sure, which was kind of strange because I thought a few weeks ago we'd heard that the Niner front office was already in talks with him or his agent to perhaps, get the re-signing do the re-signing in earnest. So I don't know. What do you guys think? What's going on there?
Well, I think Juszczyk is probably on his last big contract. Like he's got one more decent sized contract. And for the Niners who are a little bit cash strapped, fullback or offensive weapon type of guy is a luxury. And will they be, if he's willing to, take market value, maybe, but I was not caught off guard, but I noticed the same thing in his outgoing, the fact that he was so emotional, whereas you heard other guys go, oh yeah, I really love it here. I can't wait. I hope we come back, kind of that hopeful. He was almost reserved to, we've exchanged numbers and they want me for the minimum and I'm not at that point where I'm just hanging on yet. So,
and I don't think Juszczyk is exactly. I wouldn't label him a luxury, because I feel like the way that the Niners run their system, the running scheme, largely has to do with him and what he's able to do for them. So that's why that was a little concerning for me. And there was talk that, because I think he's based in, like, he has his home on the East Coast, that maybe there's some people thinking that that's where he may want to end up.
Yeah. He's a Harvard guy. So, he's out there.
It's hard to say it for me. I mean, the numbers may just be too far apart. I mean, obviously I'd like to resign him, but I mean, for that big of a number like last time, I don't know. But then at the same time, like you said, Jerry, I mean, he's very important in that run game, I think. I mean, they can do a lot more with him in there. Maybe he doesn't get as much credit as he even deserves.
Well, let me ask you. This wasn't on the rundown, so I don't think anyone put too much thought. Where do you put Juszczyk on the priority list? I think we all agree Trent Williams should be number one on their list. But where's Juszczyk? Is Juszczyk 2, or are you talking? Let's get Verrett's 2. Kerry Hyder's 2 or 3. I mean, where do you put Juszczyk as a priority in terms of signing?
Well, I guess top 5 for sure.
I'd put him number 2 for sure. Number 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say a number. I mean, maybe 3 or 4. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I would probably put him. I'd probably put him at 3, because I really hope they re-sign Verrett. Not only because that's the position group that seems to be the most uncertain, and he probably some stability. Looking at his numbers and breaking down what he did, especially the last couple games, covering DeAndre Hopkins and covering DK Metcalf, it was pretty impressive. And I guess his thing is always has been health. So I hope they don't break the bank on him, but I hope they come to an agreement that, hey, we brought you in, we gave you the shot, you took advantage, and we're going to reward you with a contract, but we're not paying you, upwards of $15 million. So,
right.
But I mean, we didn't have free agents kind of on a list of things we were going to discuss, but we can for sure moving forward, because free agency is going to be here before we know it. One thing that did get solidified at the last game of the season is draft position. So the Niners could have jumped up another 1 or 2 spots had Denver hung on against the Raiders, but they sit at 12. It's not the top 10, but if you're sitting at 12, what are you doing, Jerry?
Well, this is why draft position matters, right? I'm willing to bet if the Niners would have been inclined to draft a player like Zach Wilson at quarterback if they didn't have to part ways with the treasure trove of draft picks to get him. And keep in mind that draft picks will be even more valued this season given the diminishing cap, because drafted players are going to be cheaper than free agents. So for me, at this point, because I believe in making sure that you're building the entire team, and not so that I don't think they should give up a bunch of draft picks to move up. I think they should stand pat. And I know it's boring, but take the best player available, whether it be a defensive end like Gregory Rousseau or a cornerback like Patrick Surtain. But even at 12, that's the thing. I haven't gone, we haven't gone that road yet. I'm not sure who will be there at 12, but those would be the type of players, right? Defensive end, cornerback, who I'd be looking at.
You kind of stole my thunder a little bit there, because I was going to say 12 is a good spot. I would hope. I mean, I don't know previous years, but for corner. So if we're assuming Jimmy's going to be there and we have our quarterback of the future already in the building and Rosen potentially, and we don't give up the farm, then I'm going to go corner right there. Assuming Jimmy's there and we get Hyder re-signed opposite Bosa, and then I'm going to go corner at 12.
Yeah.
I don't think I want to go guard or center there.
I think I've been on record saying I'm definitely I'm not backing up the Brinks truck. It I'll say it bothers me. I'll say it. It bothers me that people across the spectrum, when they're talking about these things, don't put, and I'm talking the professionals, these guys who are draft experts and get paid a lot of money to dive into this stuff, that they don't take a few minutes to see what the templates are that are out there, because the template to trade up into the top 2 is there, right? And you're talking, so I went for a mini deep dive into some of these. So the template is there. So if you look back to when the Rams traded up for Goff, the Rams gave up their first rounder the next year, 2 number 2s, and a number 3. And that was to go, and that's when they were at 15. So they were a few behind, but that's kind of the ballpark. For Philadelphia was at 8. So they were kind of ahead of that 12. They gave up 2 number 1s, they gave a 1, 2 2s, and a 3. Okay. And so and that was to get up to 2. The last one that I wanted to look at real quick was the fact when the Jets traded up for Darnold, because I thought, I'm like, I don't remember them trading, giving up a lot. So they were originally at 6. They had to give up a first, a second, a first and a second to move up 3 spots. So the amount of picks you have to trade to get up that high, they always talk about that draft chart that, everyone works with. So again, I pulled up the draft chart to see, what is it? And let me grab it. One moment.
And again, let me just also reiterate, that was during a time where we didn't have a diminishing salary cap issue.
Sure. Yes. So the first round pick, the Niners' first pick, is worth 1,200 points. If they traded their entire draft, that only gets them up to number 4. So you'd have to throw in something from next year to get to number 3. And that, we're talking Trevor Lawrence going number 1. We're talking Justin Fields probably going 2 or 3. He's going in that, either the Jets are going to take him, someone will trade up. So you've got to get up at least to 4 to get one of these guys. And all we've done for the past couple of weeks is talk about how important depth was, and signing more guys and signing free agents. There's no way you can trade an entire draft. You can't pull a Mike Ditka and trade a whole draft for one guy. It's just it boggles my mind that nobody looks into this and goes, because you can say trade up for Justin Fields, trade up for Zach Wilson. Great, but what's it going to take to get there?
And not just that, but there's no guarantee.
No, it's far from a guarantee.
Right? There's no guarantee that this guy is going to be an all-pro or a franchise quarterback. So that's way too much. And not only that, but so like you said, so many teams in this draft want a quarterback, right? So
yeah, I would just say, I guess if they do their homework and they fall in love with this guy, then I can see it. Otherwise, I guess I don't see it anymore at this point, based on giving up what you have to give up.
And
that's got to be some major love. If they're to move up, that's going to be major. Ricky Williams love.
Yeah, well, you never know. It's a 50-50 or whatever, Todd was saying. But, if you love him that much, okay, so you give up next year's 1, let's say you hit on it. Okay, so you give up next year's 1, you're just flipping 1s this year, right? And then 2 2s possibly. So, I guess they really fall in love with him. I can see him doing it. If you think you're going to get Goff or whatever, your guy.
Perfect statement right there, because that's what I would say right now. Do you think the Rams would trade 2 1s and 2 2s for Jared Goff? Or do you think Philly would trade 2 1s and 2 2s if you knew you're getting Carson Wentz?
Yeah, but they've had some. They both went to Super Bowl. Well, not Wentz, but
No, but that's what I'm saying. But you look at him this year, Goff is very average.
Correct.
So you're talking. You traded a lot for an average quarterback. Philadelphia is in disarray, and Wentz. Now maybe you didn't see the kind of locker room issues that he would have caused, but or the injuries. But again, he's not. You know, you talk about quarterbacks. You don't mention either one of them as a top 10 quarterback. You know,
you don't now, but I think what's tough is if you're thinking back then, you know, these are teams that needed quarterbacks. Absolutely. And obviously to have traded all those picks to get up there to take them. And like Jeff said, Jared Goff did help the Rams get to a Super Bowl. So I think right now the big question is, should they have paid him all that money, you know, to keep him?
Then you're stuck.
That's the bigger question, not moving up to grab him initially. And with Wentz, I mean, he was on a MVP
right. He was having an MVP
level before he got hurt. So I don't know. It's hard to say with those two guys.
You guys are the best podcast partners because you just lead me right down to the next time. Because here it is. We've spent all this time talking about Jimmy. Jimmy helped lead us to a Super Bowl. So if you're talking about, oh, well, Goff, again, it's all encompassing. Yes. So if we're talking about, well, you know, the Rams did this and he did help them get to the Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. It's all factual, and it's a matter of what do you want out of it. Just like, you know, I don't mind keeping Jimmy because I think his ceiling with a good team is getting to the Super Bowl. You know, other people will look at it differently, thinking they need something else. But that's the idea. You can't look at it. I mean, because you don't want a flash in the pan team. You don't want to be, hey, we went 13-3, went to the Super Bowl, and then nothing else. So you don't want to be currently the Rams or the, you know, I mean, I don't know. I'm not the kind of guy who wants to go like, we won a Super Bowl, I'm good going to be, you know, out of the playoffs for 4 years and then we'll make the play. I'm like, I'd rather try and sustain some success. Not that it has to be the Patriots dynasty or nothing, but you've got to be able to get into the tournament, you know? So, you know,
but on the flip side, your whole what if scenario, if we traded all that and got Zach Wilson and we went to the Super Bowl next year or the year after, then it's worth it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But we'll never know. That's the problem.
No, but that's, again, it's all a roll of the dice. But here's what I would say to you. If I was a genie and I can say, you're getting Zach Wilson, you get to go to the Super Bowl next year, and I can't promise anything after that.
Right.
Or do you say, or no, you can win the Super Bowl next year, or you can say you can keep Jimmy and you're going to go at least to the NFC Championship 2 out of the next 5 years. You know, it's like, what do you want? And like, and that's just a hypothetical, like saying Zach Wilson can do that. So it just goes back to the Wentz and Goff and these guys that you traded up for.
The point is, it's giving up a lot. I'm not sure if they're willing to do that. Whether or not we think they should, I mean, I don't know if they're willing to do that. So,
but I think your analogy, or you know, comparing Goff to Garoppolo, I think they're kind of two separate ways about looking at it. On the one hand, you have the what did you give up to get him, right? So I'm sure the Rams are fine giving up those draft picks to move up in the draft to get him because they end up going to the Super Bowl, right? Just like I'm sure the Niners, as well as the fans, were fine giving up a second-round pick to get Jimmy, right? But then it's the contract they're after, where does their performance justify their, you know, the contract and the money that they're being paid? And I feel like, in fact, that similar discussions are probably being held among Ram fans about whether or not Goff is worth it. It's not to say that they want the John Wolford era to begin, but is, you know, when you have a guy making so much money and taking up so much of your cap, right? You need that guy to be like your Russell Wilson, where it's like, yeah, we can't really address some other parts of our team, so you're just going to have to make some magic and make it happen, which a guy like Russell Wilson often does, right? But then with Goff and with Garoppolo, they don't. And when you say that, yes, if we keep Garoppolo, we're going to go to the NFC Championship 2 of the next 5 years. Are you saying he's only going to be healthy those 2 years?
Well, I'm saying possibly. But that's again, that's the I don't know what's going to happen.
That's the problem with him, right? It's more, you know, is he going to be there to play? I mean, I think that's why when you talk about Goff, that's one big difference.
That's another part of the scenario is you have Russell Wilson's health every year, and they're contenders, or Goff has been healthy for the most part, and then Jimmy, is he healthy?
Because think about it this way.
Okay.
Last year, the Niners kicked the tires on Tom Brady, the 43-year-old Tom Brady. 43-year-old stayed healthy this year and threw 40 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
But Jimmy Garoppolo did not and has been out 2 of the last 3 years. So,
which is why I think if last year's scenario was playing out this year, don't think there's any doubt the Niners would go out and sign Tom Brady. Yeah. But I want to get to a question that Jerry kind of posed, and I don't know if it's a conundrum, but and Jeff, will let you go first because I don't think you've chimed in. What do you think Jimmy is worth in a trade? What would somebody give up for Jimmy?
Well, I've heard one of you say like a fifth. Is that you, Todd? I mean, it's just hard to think.
Well, let's be fair. That was Jerry inserting words into my mouth. I said the Niners could most likely get a third, a mid-second if it's kind of a team with a mid to late second. But most likely a third.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I'd hope for that second to third. I don't think fifth. No. I mean, still think he's a serviceable quarterback that showed that he could get the job done and get you to a Super Bowl. Whether someone wants to take on his contract, but then to certain teams that might be a decent contract. Absolutely. It's not 35.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean second.
But Jerry's got other thoughts.
I don't think first, but.
Well, I think my question was where I've seen some aspects of the media, in their hypothetical trade scenarios, I've seen that, I think it was a guy named Barnwell on ESPN had proposed that New England give up a 5th rounder.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
For Jimmy. And I'm just like, why does Jimmy only garner late round compensation when a high-priced, broken Carson Wentz or an aging, injury-plagued Matthew Stafford, why can those guys fetch early round returns, right? And so, I mean, if he's as great as his record suggests, and I'm talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, where they like to throw out he was 24-9 as a starter and a Super Bowl quarterback. Well, and his contract isn't outlandish. If you've got the cap room, then shouldn't he warrant a 1st-round draft pick, or at the minimum a 2nd-round draft pick, which is what we ended up, trading for him, right? But if his value is being knocked because he missed 23 games in the last 3 seasons, and you could only fetch a 5th rounder for him, then you do take a pay cut.
I do think 5th round is a little outlandish in terms of what you can get in compensation. Like I said, I would suspect you can get if a team called up and offered their 2nd for Jimmy, I think the Niners would take that. If they offered their 3rd, I think they'd consider it. Anything less, I don't think, unless they just want him out of town. But to address your specific question is, I think why can Carson Wentz and Matt Stafford command higher compensation? I think it's because they've demonstrated that they have a higher ceiling than Jimmy. I think Jimmy has shown what his ceiling is, and that is, we've talked about it. He's an average quarterback who, with a good defense, a good surrounding, can, help lead you there. But he can't carry you there. Whereas Stafford is a good quarterback on a bad team, and if he's surrounded with good talent and not asked to carry the team, could really be better. Same thing with Wentz. We talked about how Wentz was in discussions for the MVP before he got hurt a couple of years ago because he was demonstrating his ceiling was higher. And I think that's where the draft compensation discrepancy.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand or agree with that because I feel like you also have to, if you want to talk about the ceiling, then you got to talk about the floor, right? And I feel like
absolutely.
Those 2 guys, their floors are much lower. I think Stafford,
You're wrong. No, how can you? Jimmy's floor is 0 because he's missed so many games. His floor is literally sitting in a suite. Stafford has missed 8 games in 10 years. How many games has Jimmy? How long did it take for Jimmy to miss 8? So
I understand that completely because we probably wouldn't be having this discussion if Jimmy had been healthy this entire time. But I can still say that. Did you not see Matt Stafford just drop back and pass and completely collapse like a house of cards? I mean, the guy is 32 going on 33. He hasn't ever won anything. I mean, and
I,
it's not like he hasn't had any talent around him.
I understand, but you just said, what is their floor? And Stafford's floor, he's played at his floor. He's 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, doesn't miss a game.
I think that's his peak. I think he's peaked. I think he's on the back nine. I don't see him getting any better.
Oh, that's fine, but that's his floor. That's his floor. That's as bad as he's going to get. Yeah. Why? How can you say no? You have no evidence to say he's going to get worse.
Because he's getting older.
Oh, okay, but Jimmy's getting older, and that's the thing. You can't just take age. You got to say, what is his floor? What has he demonstrated his floor being? And Jimmy has demonstrated his ceiling is, I can take a pretty good team to the Super Bowl, and my floor is I'm unreliable, and you get Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard for 3/4 of the season.
And Matthew Stafford had arguably one of the best receivers ever in Calvin Johnson, and they never did anything. So, I mean, we could argue about Matthew Stafford as, till the cows come home. I know you like him more than I do, but same with Carson Wentz. Like right now, Carson Wentz is broken. Dude got benched. Dude's got like an astronomical contract. Why would a guy like that be worth more than Jimmy? I don't get it.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't see why Carson Wentz necessarily would, but Matt Stafford, I mean, I just think he had Calvin Johnson, but that's just one guy, and you're playing in just a defunct Detroit, organization. Like, I could totally see bringing him in. The age, only talking a couple of years. I mean, he could get in this system, and he could probably do a lot of damage, I would think.
But I guess that's my point is, you asked why could Stafford command a 1? It's because if you're a good team or a pretty good team, you're taking a guy who you've seen
he's put up numbers, he's been consistent, he's been a Pro Bowler, right?
Who can take terrible talent, not Calvin Johnson, but a terrible overall team, and make them average. Right. So can you take an average team and make them really good?
But at the same time, I don't necessarily want to give up my first for Matt Stafford either. So I don't know.
Totally. I mean, that's completely reasonable, but, and I think that's why, again, Jerry asked the question, did Lynch and Shanahan kind of just give lip service to, oh, Jimmy's our quarterback and all this kind of stuff? We got to remember, Kyle's watched 5 minutes of college football this season. Like he doesn't watch anything, and he's the decision maker. So going back to if he falls in love, you got to say Jimmy's your quarterback right now, because if Kyle starts watching tape and goes, these guys are crap, or these guys would not fit my system, well, then you're bringing Jimmy back, or you're making a trade. Whereas maybe in 3 weeks after he's watched him and he goes, get me this guy. I don't care what it takes. You get me this guy. We're going to go undefeated for 3 years. Like that. So in the current situation, you've got to have your exit interviews. Like, you can't say, oh, we're trading them. Although, they did talk about, in a roundabout way, we're going to have contract discussions, basically telling Jimmy, you got to restructure. So, I mean.
Right. No, I mean, it's not weird for Shanahan and Lynch to talk the talk that they've been, that they've had. But to me, what's weird is to hear Jimmy G talk so positively. I'm not sure if you guys had heard, but I don't know. It's almost like, he's talking about how excited he is to be with the team and he looks forward to next year. I mean, it's almost as if I'm living in an alternative reality. Yeah. Like, is there no diminishing cap? Has Jimmy not missed 2 out of the last 3 seasons? Has Kyle not pined after other quarterbacks during his tenure? Yeah. Are the Niners just going to bring Jimmy back because they can't figure out a better solution?
Yeah, so they're totally confident, yet the rest of us are like, wait a minute, what are we going to do with this guy? Yeah.
Well, I also think that they got to I think that it's the whole, they got to face him walking down the halls. Also, like, you and I can talk about, cut him, trade him, who cares, whatever. Whereas, boy, you start walking down the hall, it's the whole, oh, you walked into the restroom and the guy that you just, had an argument with, at the boardroom sitting there in the urinal, you're like, I guess this is kind of awkward now. Right. So, I mean, yeah, you got to.
Those guys are going to say the right things for sure.
Yeah, and Jimmy's, look, I think Jimmy's smart enough to understand that. I think Jimmy's smart enough to understand that being with Kyle is his best avenue to be successful. I think he understands that he's not Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, get on my back and I'm going to carry you to the promised land. So he's got to say all the right things too to make sure Kyle knows, hey, I'm with you. I'm on board. Hey, these injuries suck. I know they suck, but you know what? You and me together again, we're gonna ride, type of thing. So, I mean, I think it's smart on both their parts, to at least play it out. And we also discussed earlier, a few podcasts ago, having Jimmy back at a significantly reduced rate, not the worst thing, especially now that they got Rosen.
Mm-hmm.
Roll some money over to Juszczyk, roll some money over to Trent Williams, use your first rounder on, Patrick Surtain or Horn or Russo. Okay, all of a sudden you start getting excited again about how we've built it up. I think the scary part is more the unknown, because you're not going to cut Jimmy without an alternative, and you're not going to trade him, hopefully, for like a fifth. So
yeah,
you got to let that play out a little bit. So, let's just say the right things currently.
Sure.
And behind closed doors, we'll have the, tough talks.
Say the right things, and then hopefully they're having those discussions and not just, like Jerry said, just I have no idea what we're doing. And
right. And I mean, I guess the best thing about the NFL is they're a 12-month league. Like, there is no downtime, and we get to talk about everything as it progresses until March in free agency and April in the draft. But before we do that, because by the time our next podcast comes out, half the playoff teams are going to be axed. So we might as well let's take a quick look at the playoff scene. Indy at Buffalo is your traditional strong defense against powerful offense. But honestly, after watching Buffalo for the past few games, I don't think they can be stopped. So, or I'm not stopped this week. So I got to think Buffalo is kind of, I shouldn't say slam dunk, because I think Tampa Bay beating Washington Saturday night is that's the game I'd be most confident picking, but Buffalo's right up there. So of the three games, Indy, Buffalo, Rams at Seattle, Tampa Bay at Washington, thoughts? Including, let me ask you, are you going to have a rooting interest in the Seattle Rams game? We've talked about, two Niner rivals. Do you just hope they both lose, or do you care?
That's the problem with that type of matchup, divisional like that, man. It's like, but I mean, I don't know who I want to win that game. Maybe the Rams, just to get the Seahawks out of there, figuring the Rams won't last very much longer. But I don't know if they can beat Seattle. I don't know. Russell Wilson's the greatest quarterback ever, right? So. And I'm going to go with Buffalo and Tampa on those.
Gary?
Yeah, I mean, rooting interest, not really, especially since Seattle should take care of the John Wolford Rams pretty easily. Right. Buffalo, yeah, I see Buffalo winning their game. I mean, Buffalo's on a roll, so Josh Allen's playing out his mind. So I think they'll be just fine. I'm sorry, what other games did you?
Tampa Bay, Washington.
Tampa's a little banged up, and Washington's playing with house money, but
that is true.
I think Tampa should, in the end, pull it out.
I mean, as great of a story as Alex Smith was this year, I got to think it comes to an end this year, or this week. So, but then we roll into Sunday, Baltimore at Tennessee, old-fashioned slugfest, Chicago at New Orleans, and Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Jeff's Cleveland Browns at the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, and thoughts on those games?
Well, it sounds like Cleveland's got a lot of other issues they're dealing with, so I'm going to have to go with Pitt, of course, on that one. Baltimore will be interesting. I think I might have to take Baltimore on that one. I don't know. And
stand your ground.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. Just because Tennessee wasn't, didn't convince me last week, I guess. What's the other one?
Chicago at New Orleans.
Oh, yeah. I'll take New Orleans in that.
Jerry?
Yeah, I mean, I think New Orleans should take care of business against the Bears. I'm happy for the Browns fans who finally got to see their team make the playoffs. But, I agree with Jeff. I think it'll be short-lived because I think Pittsburgh should beat Cleveland. And the Tennessee-Baltimore matchup is a pick 'em. That's tough.
Yeah.
I want to take the Ravens, but I guess until I see Lamar Jackson being able to handle postseason pressure, I'll go with Tennessee.
And I got to think, and we talked about it earlier, if Baltimore was to get embarrassed, if they just, could Harbaugh be on his way out? And I say maybe, but I also think the same thing for Nagy. Nagy obviously got a reprieve because he got his team backed into the playoffs, even though they got, just trounced by Green Bay. So now they get to go down to New Orleans. So if they get pummeled by the Saints, maybe Nagy is, a coach on the outs, because watching the Bears play the last week, they just did not look like a playoff team. They just couldn't put it together. So you got to think New Orleans playing at home with the experience has the edge. I'm going with Pittsburgh over Cleveland, just because of my love for Cleveland. And then I'm going to lean Tennessee because I don't know, because watching Baltimore, they just haven't sold me. They sell me the shiny objects all during the regular season, and then they get into the slugfest, and I don't think there's a bigger slugfesty team than trying to tackle Derrick Henry. I mean, I turned that game on, I don't know, halftime or what, and all of a sudden, Derrick Henry, 250. I'm like, 250 yards? Yeah. Like the guy went up for 2,000 yards.
2,000 for the last 2 years. Jeez.
I mean, it's like, so I think I'm kind of, whichever one of you said you weren't sold on Tennessee, I'm kind of on I'm picking Tennessee until they show me that they can't run the ball, because I don't know, that's a beast of a man you're trying to tackle.
Right.
So, yeah. But any other thought? I mean, as we wrap up, we went long, which is okay by me, because I thought it was an entertaining discussion. But anything that you didn't get in earlier that you'd like to circle back to?
No, but I mean, I think the one thing that we've learned about the NFL is that anything's possible. Crazier things can always happen. And I don't know if you guys got a chance to take a peek at BYU TV of late, but Jeff's favorite, Zach Wilson, went on there, and when they asked him what system he felt best fit him, he specifically called out the 49ers.
Wow. Okay.
Who knows?
I guess I'm going to have to find where BYU TV is on the channel guide now, that's.
Oh, and you know how he got he started getting some bad pub about how he's the spoiled guy and whatnot. And maybe this is why he dropped the cup of noodles reference, but when you listen to that interview, he seems like a pretty down to earth college kid. He doesn't come across as like, I go to the steakhouse here on the campus and
I will say I read one anecdote about him that over the summer he delivered DoorDash to have some more spending money. And I got to think that's either parents, even if you're well off, telling the kid, hey, you got to earn your own keep. And I mean, if you're delivering, if you're delivering DoorDash, if you're delivering 12 tacos to the drunk kids
right
down the street, for
you're working. Yeah.
You're that's some humility for sure that he's picked up. So
for sure.
So this was local DoorDash. This wasn't jump on your uncle's JetBlue jet and deliver it,
Probably he wasn't delivering lobster to the queen or anything like that.
So I was just gonna say the only thing I was gonna circle back to is just the overall free agency is really going to, I think, determine what we do, but then a lot of the teams in the league, when we were talking about the games being played. So whether or not they fire Nagy in Chicago, I mean, they could be looking for a quarterback as well there, or you don't know what's going to happen if anyone gets released. I mean, I think it's just a lot to play out, and it'll be interesting in the next couple months, I guess.
Yeah, I think
for all the teams in the league.
Yeah, I think I think we get about a month of real speculation throughout the playoffs for the teams like the Niners who aren't in the playoffs to see what's going to happen. But soon after the Super Bowl, you're going to start hearing about, franchise tags. So that's an option for many teams. So you're talking about, you see some of these guys who are on the free agent name list. Oh, top free agent. Well, some of these guys are going to get tagged by their own teams.
Yeah.
So you get kind of a month of speculation, then you get right into the free agency. And within that time, there's a lot that has to be done for the Niners in terms of getting their salary cap situation squared away, figuring out what to do with Jimmy. They're having those discussions with him, right? They've had to sit down and say, Jimmy, here's what it is. So, I think it's going to be fun and interesting. And we're going to talk about all of it, as it comes out. And I just think that it's so important in a, non-important way to, have a voice and dive deep into these things and let other people, share your knowledge, I guess we should say. Share your knowledge with those out there, because it just seems that, too many people will jump and take the first line of bait that they see. So you might as well give them something to chew on. So one thing that we didn't get to is the NFL neighborhood. We can push that back to next week, because I took some time to scout out my neighbors, and I think I'm going to have one heck of a block party with these guys. They all bring something to the table. So, but we'll tackle those next week. So I think my final thoughts are welcome 2021. Thanks for showing up. We appreciate it. And then I guess there's no beer review for me this week, but I will say on the whiskey front, I had a 12-year-old Whistle Pig that was oh so delicious, and that was highly recommended. And I will also say that Cobra Kai season 3 was just as entertaining as the first two. So those two things in 2021 have already gotten off to a solid start. Anything else?
Just to wrap up on the Niners, it was, obviously it goes without saying, it was a brutal season defined by too many players being hurt, significant players, from the beginning and throughout the year. And depending on how the dominoes fall this offseason, there could be even more losses to come when other teams poach from our coaching staff, front office, players, and free agency, not to mention what they're going to do at QB, as we've gone over. So buckle up, Niner fans. The roller coaster ride could be just getting even bumpier. But the good news is, Three Side Sports Talk will be here to make it entertaining.
Absolutely.
There you go. Yeah, I would just say only beer review. I mean, it's not anything. It's more mainstream, but the one I had earlier was Corona Premier. I don't know if you've had that. Pretty good. I was done with Corona for a while, but then I tried the Premier, and it was really good, at least in the summer.
Well, let's face it, Corona has had a tough year in general from the market.
But the Corona Premier,
so and maybe that's their marketing genius, throwing
right. Just change the name.
It's getting back into the flow.
And I haven't had much whiskey. I don't think I've had any actually since Christmas, because I had too much since Christmas. But yeah. Maybe one final note. Can they possibly tag use check then? What would that price be?
Well, I think that would yes.
It might be a lower amount for a fullback, right?
Well, it depends if I think it would come down to, I don't know if fullbacks have a cap or if they just get lumped in with running.
That might be a way to get them. I don't know.
If they get lumped in with running backs, I would say that number is going to be high. But if they have a fullback category, then maybe right. Something to investigate, I suppose.
Yeah. So that's all I got.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. We appreciate it. We appreciate everyone downloading, listening, and enjoying the podcast. We will join you again next Wednesday, as podcasts drop every Wednesday, for Three Side Sportscast. Thank you very much. Goodbye.